Hello, everybody. This is going to be an interesting day. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thanksgiving Thursday morning or evening if you're located somewhere else in the world, like where Inder is. How you doing, Inder?
All good. Excited for today's session.
Good, good. And today's a little bit different, right? So it's unique, but at the same time, we have some guests who are going to join us, and we hope you guys stick with us throughout the whole day or throughout the whole event because we have, well, you're just going to learn a lot of things, and then there's going to be maybe something interesting at the very end, maybe, I'm not sure. So I'm just going to say stick with us, please, stick with us. I might make it worth your while. I'll just put it to you like that. Okay, so without further ado, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and invite our guests?
Absolutely. So I'm going to introduce you to some folks that I met about a year and a half back while we were at WeWork. And these are one of the smartest folks that I've seen in the marketing space. I was scouting for some partners who could help us with some of our consulting assignments early on. And the way they approached the problem statement that I put across to them and how they had a very clear structure in terms of how to take something forward right from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 100 and so on and so forth is what captivated me. So we've been in conversation. We circled back now after about, I think, a year and a half. And Johan and team have been working on some amazing stuff. They're also working on a course specifically designed for founders and startup operators. So without further ado, I think let's bring them on the session. And I'm sure they'll do more justice to the introduction than I do.
Hey there, guys.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, guys.
And thanks for having us, guys.
Talk to us. WeWork, huh? That's interesting.
Yeah, actually, it's a cool story. Before, just some context, Shobit and I have been running a marketing agency for startups for the last couple of years. And early 2020, we were like, we want to try something different. And we were like, what if we did rapid office hours? So we booked out an entire floor at WeWork. And we took all the booths and we said, what if we said, you could just come in, talk to a mentor, get advice and go. And then COVID happened. And then someone from WeWork, I give her so much credit for this. She said, hey, Johan, what if you took this online? And this was March 2020. There was no such thing. It was, people didn't even know what that did. And so we launched this program called the Startup Growth Hour as a mentorship program for founders. And we weren't expecting what happened, but we ended up getting 100 applications in less than a month. And, that just, you took off from there. And yeah, that's when I met Inder. We did a one-on-one, which was great. And yeah, so it's been quite the ride the last 2 years. But just to kind of give some really high level introduction to Shobit and I, Shobit and I started an agency called Fishhook 3 years ago. And we primarily help startups and small to medium businesses with their strategy and their go-to-market and brand. And we kind of come alongside them think of us as like an outsourced CMO that comes, works with you to get you to the next stage. And that's a big chunk of what we've been doing, but we are also stepping into education. And so we're actually building a marketing school for startup professionals and SMB professionals designed to kind of training the next generation of marketers. Yeah, that's what's happening. Shob, you want to say a few words before I explain what we're going to do today?
No, you can go for it.
All right, great. So what we're talking about, one of the things we do is we look at marketing a little differently. We believe that there's a certain fresh perspective that comes. We really romanticize it as well. And this is the stuff we live for. And so when Inder and I were kind of jamming up about what should we talk about, I was telling him that one of the things we really believe in fundamentally about marketing is that we need to build marketing around the audience, not around us, not around what we can sell, but around the audience specifically. And that is kind of the heartbeat of how we look at marketing. And so part of that, in that process that we use is something that we do called segmentation and personas. And so how do you segment your audience? And then how do you build buyer personas? And we're not talking buyer personas that just talk about your hobbies and, what do you like to do on the weekends, but buyer personas that actually help you effectively market to them. And more importantly, help you personalize it to them. And that's where some of the personalization part comes. So Shobit's going to be walking us through a little bit on the buyer persona piece, and then I think we're also doing this for the first time, so we'll just kind of take it from there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go. We've got a specific bucket of time, so I'm just gonna dive right into it. Just give me a second.
Sure thing.
All right. So we're gonna talk a little bit about personas, buyer personas, audience. So you asked the question, what's the biggest brand problem? And this is after having looked at hundreds or maybe across 1,000 websites, looking at them in detail and studying them and studying brands. And the biggest problem that we see with brands is narcissism. And Johan talked a little bit about this, why we need to build an audience, but I want to give a little context to what he's saying. Narcissism is the pursuit of gratification from vanity or egotistic admiration of one's idealized self-image or attributes. And what are we talking about? If any of you, I'm going to move through this, but the big problem with most brands is we're the best designers, SaaS, realtors, auditors, workplace, entertainers. Now, why do most businesses tend to talk about themselves so much? And that's because most businesses are thinking about themselves. In fact, this seems to be the biggest problem there is. Most startups fail because there is no market need. Most blogs fail because people are writing blog titles that nobody is looking for. Most apps fail because we fall in love with our app ideas, but nobody really wants to download an app for the problem you're solving. A lot of people are not asking the question, am I solving a real problem? Have I experienced the problem myself? Does this problem happen often? Is the problem solvable? Have I gotten feedback on my product from any real customers? Does this problem hurt enough to pay for a solution? Are my customers easily findable? Now, why would I bring this up in an audience piece? When we say that audience truly is the center of our marketing, it's not just the center of marketing, the center of why we exist. If you didn't have an audience, it didn't matter how cool your product is. It didn't matter because if you didn't have an audience. And so you had to ask questions like, what does success look like for my customer? What are my customers' fears? Or what does my customer need to feel when they meet me for the first time? Will my customer find my brand interesting? How do I build trust with my customer? How can I make my customer feel comfortable? Now, think about it like a stranger walks up to a girl, like he doesn't know, and he's like, marry me. He's like, who are you? I don't even know you. Oh, I'm quite famous. You should have seen me in the cover of a magazine. It's like, sorry, I'm not interested. Like, you're a creep. But I'm called the most eligible bachelor of the year. So yeah, I'm calling the cops if you're not going away. Now, when I relay this story, it might seem like, yeah, the guy's so dumb. Like, why would he walk up to a stranger and ask to marry him? But we do that all the time. We do that all the time with our Facebook ads, with our Instagram ads, with our YouTube ads, in-app ads. We're so busy interrupting people, and we've asked them to maybe not marry us, but we're asking them to take such big leaps with us. The reason is because we're so obsessed thinking about ourselves that we haven't taken the time to put ourselves in the context of our customer. Now, there are two ways that brands look at their audience primarily, and it's not a blanket rule, but in our experience, first they think everybody is their audience, which is a very common mistake they make. So they have this notion that I have to speak to everyone. I'm able to talk to everybody.
Right.
Now, when they try talking to everybody at once, the problem is they end up talking to nobody in particular. And that's one of the primary mistakes that a lot of businesses make. The second business, they think they have one type of customer. And if you ask a lot of startup founders, people who are running new ideas, you tell me about your customer. More times than often, they are describing one persona. But the truth is, they actually have a lot more personas that they're choosing to ignore. Because most of the times, they're thinking of a persona that we call at the bottom of the funnel that's ready to purchase. Most marketing messages end up being sales focused because they're talking to this person, often a hypothetical person. This person a lot of time doesn't exist because everybody needs a little bit of brand nurture. Now, if you were to look at a different way to look at audiences, most brands actually have multiple ways that you could divide your audiences. Now, let's take Zara, for example. Now, Zara has, you could say, okay, how do you divide Zara's audience? You could divide by gender, male and female, or you could say, age. You can use age as a way to divide the audience, or you could use location. I mean, these are just some ways to divide an audience. But if you think about it, what do you go with? Because if you talk to a 65-year-old man on Facebook, if Zara were to address one of its customers, a 65-year-old gentleman from, let's say, Russia on Facebook, they will have to talk very differently to an 18-year-old girl on Instagram who's from South Korea. So what's actually happened is you have multiple factors of division that will determine the positioning of a brand. And that's what we're trying to get at. Most people think brand message, we talk about brand message, we talk about brand positioning, we talk about unique selling points, we talk about, brand equity and stuff like that. What most people miss out is there are multiple audience sets, and each of these audiences have a different relationship to your brand. And if you don't learn to divide your audience clearly, you're going to miss out on talking to key people. Now, just by what I said, if you take gender, let's say, I'm just going to keep it simple, male and female in this discussion. There are two segments. So if Zara were to take its entire audience set and divided based on male and female, that's one way to look at it. What if we added age to that? So you've got, let's say they decided we're going to have 4 buckets, 16 to 20, 21 to 25, 24, and 26 to 30. Now you have gender into age. So you've come up with 8 unique segments. And then let's say you decide to add location to that mix, suddenly of India, South Korea, London, France. 32 different segments. Now suddenly, this whole segmentation process starts getting very, very daunting. But what we've seen from our experience and working with startups, that most startups need to pick what we call 1 or 2 primary factors of segmentation, which is the first step is when you look at your audiences, if you really want to do them justice, you need to first learn how to divide your audience effectively. And if you're, let's say, if you're a B2C brand, then you have age, gender, location, occupation, income, education, marital status, culture. These are some of the very basic, and your business might have a very specialized niche way to define your brand. But for most part, these are some of the common ways. Or if you're a B2B audience, you might divide your audience based on type of business, age of business, location, role of the person, need, industry, problem intensity, payability, size of the business. These are very common. It is a very common ways. What we do is we do an extensive segmentation exercise. We ask brands, how would you divide your audience? If you were to walk into a room and there was 100 of your perfect target audiences in that room, but they're all mixed up, what's the most effective way for you to divide the room into smaller clusters so that you can effectively cater to different clusters well? So a business might, if it's a B2B business, they might say, I think Industry is a very important factor. I'm going to pick industry. I'm going to put industry 1, industry 2, and industry 3, and I have to talk very differently to these three industries. Or I might pick stage of business. I need all the idea stage guys here. I need all the funded chaps here. I need everybody who's series onwards here, because they're actually got different needs. Our sales cycles are going to be different. I engage with them very differently. It's very important as a business, if you're listening in and you're wondering what's the first step with defining my audience sets, the most important thing is learning how to divide your audience. Now, you might say, how do I pick? And the truth of the matter is, a lot of this is done in A/B testing. So how you pick an audience has to do with what are your growth channels like. So am I advertising on Facebook, on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok? What are my outbound marketing channels like? And what's the easiest way for me to target my different audience sets? So if you take age, then it's very easy. All of your platforms have age as a targeting metric. If you say location, or you say interest, you begin to be able to do it. But if you have very niche ways to break up your audience, you might struggle to target. So that should be one of the different ways to talk to your actual customers. Like if you can get 20, 30, 50 of your customers in a room and then look at them and you believe that they're a good mix, just start and say, how can I divide these guys? Like, what are the most effective ways? Like, should I put all the moms on one side, all the dads on one side, all the teenagers on one side? Should I put like entrepreneurs, freelancers, CEOs, how do I effectively communicate with cohorts of clusters? That's what segmentation really is. So the question you want to ask is, what segment would you use to divide your business audience and why? And pick a segment. Now, once you've picked a segment, let's say you said, I want to go with age as my primary way to divide my audience. Or let's talk about Nexweave. Nexweave says, we want to divide our audience based on, let's say, stage of business. What an enterprise client needs from its personalized video is very different from what an early stage founder is looking to do. Enterprise client is looking to apply our services across multiple channels, but the founder is looking to do just 1 or 2 channels because they have a limited budget. So then the next question is ranges. So you want to learn to build certain ranges. So if you say age, if it's let's say it is location, we want to divide our audience based on locations. Pick your location. United States, Europe, Asia, Pacific, Australia. Let's say you divide it. So you have to break step 2 is breaking your audience set into ranges. So first step, learn how to divide your audience, find a good factor of division. Step number 2, build them into ranges. Now, the step number 3, which is personification, buyer persona. Now, all of us have heard a lot about buyer personas. You type buyer personas, you get this template, which will tell you, okay, this is, Lindsay, and she is an accountant, and she reads Harry Potter books, and she likes ice cream on a Sunday, and her fears are she's never gonna find an interesting job, and she likes to travel, and honestly, I think those buyer personas are absolutely rubbish, because they have nothing to do with your brand. Actually, the whole point of a buyer persona is to be able to effectively divide your audiences. Like, for example, we put together these mock personas for a travel agency that is selling travel packages, and we are trying to show how different audiences have different wants, needs, and expectations. Somebody has very little money, they're supported by parents. What they're looking for is cheap travel, and carpools and hostels. What they're looking for is freedom and excitement. But someone who's 40 plus, going through a midlife crisis or something, they want adventure. They're looking for curated explorer packages. Their long-term desire is to feel alive again. Your different audiences will interact with your brand for different reasons. And so if you're going to build a persona that talks about what books they want to read or what chocolate they like, it really isn't help, unless you are selling them chocolate, which is then a great idea. Now, the best way for you to start off with your persona project, first you name your persona, you add your pain or need. What's the pain point for this person that what's the pain point that you're addressing? So just connecting this back to step number 2, step number 1 was divide your audience, find a way to divide your audience. Step 2 is you break them into ranges. You know, if you Australia, America, then you pick one of these ranges and you turn that range into a persona. So you say, okay, what do I name this persona? I name this person Cheryl. Okay, what is the need or pain of Cheryl that I'm solving today for? So Cheryl, she wants to, she's tired of traveling to the same locations, and she wants to explore new places. If you're a travel agency, what's my solution to Cheryl's problem, and what does success look like for Cheryl? So the first step of building a solid persona is you define the pain or the need or the benefit or the pain point, essentially the challenge, what your solution is to that pain point, and then finally, what does success look like for this person? So if I am looking for a pair of jeans, my need is I'm not able to find a pair of jeans. Your solution is we curate every possible jean brand under the planet and bring them to you on one single shopping store, so you don't have to go looking on Google Shopping for your jeans. My success is I'm happy. I'm content. I'm able to find what I need relatively easy. So how do you do that? Now, how do you take personas up to the next level? Like I said, most personas look like this. Name of the person, age, income, location. What are the defining traits like? What is the professional background? Now, unless you're selling education to them, their professional background doesn't really matter. Or unless their education actually matters. That's what he's saying. Most of these personas actually really do nothing for your brand. But if you want to build great personas, you want to start by asking key questions. So context, your first thing is your context bucket. With this person, how badly does this person feel the problem I'm solving? So let's keep it around the relationship with the brand. How often does this person feel the problem solving? How badly they feel the problem? How often does this problem happen? Would this person actively go looking for a solution to this problem? And if they're finding a solution to this problem, where do they find that solution today? So let's say I'm selling pet food. Okay, how badly this audience is struggling because they can't seem to find a pet food that works for their dog. Okay, how often does this problem happen? 3 times a day. This is a hungry dog. Would this person actively go looking for a solution? Yes, they're desperately on the internet looking for all pet food for their dog. Where does this person go to solve the problem? The local pet store. So if first step is building a context around the person. Now, the second step is addressing barriers of entry. Now, this is the most interesting of the lot. Most businesses we see, I'm an entrepreneur myself, so I'm not blaming you, but we love our product. We think we're the best things in sliced bread and God's gift to mankind. We think the moment our audience looks at us, they're going to fall in love with us and they're just going to buy our products. That is not the case. In fact, there are more reasons for your audience to not buy from you than there are to buy from you. So you have to, if you want to do this well, you have to ask yourself the question, why would this person not engage with my brand? Start by asking the tough questions. Do they not know we exist? Do they not trust my business? Do I not have enough credibility? Do they find my business hard to work with? Is my communication too complex? Is my pricing not working for them? Are they confused when they come to my website? Is my buyer journey too long? Are my blogs too technical? Do they not have enough social validation? And does my presence on Instagram not work for them? What are the reasons for this person to not engage with me? What are my barriers of entry? Second thing, positioning. Now you want to go one step, ask the question, why would this person pick me over 4 similar brands doing exactly what I do? What can I offer, say, or do that would give me an edge with this person? If there are 5 of us in the room vying for this persona's business, what would give me an edge over this person? What feature, benefit, offer does this persona really care about from the in what I'm offering? What do I need to make this person feel in order to win them over? We forget the whole emotional side of purchase. In fact, there's a massive side. Most businesses will spend so much time on your pre-purchase experience. You go to a website, it looks amazing. They do everything for you to get to that purchase. The moment you give your credit card details, it's another world from there. They don't pick up your phone calls, you don't get a confirmation email, the product doesn't work. We are not thinking about the person. What do you want this person to feel? How does this person need to see me in order to engage with my brand? How do they need to see me as an authority in the space? Do they need to see me as kind? Do they need to see me as a problem solver? Third thing, what are the expectations outcome? What does success look like for this persona? What do they believe success looks like? What do they expect from me? What might break this persona's trust in my business? And what would delight this persona? Finally, message. This is the tough one. Now, the biggest sales problem I've seen in my near decade of working in marketing and sales is that most business messages or most businesses are trying to sell the whole product, and more often than not, you need to give the persona just a slight taste. We love our products. We think our products are great. So we try to sell them anything. If you ask for this is hard, guys. If you ask them for an elevator pitch, they want to tell you why they're doing what they're doing. They want to tell you every key area of their product. They want to tell you what success looks like. They want to tell you what that looks like in 10 years. And the person is not ready for all this information. So the question we ask is, what's the one thing that I need to tell this person to get them interested, to take that first step, not to buy the product, not to become an ambassador for me? What's the one message? Now, if I got a chance to say one more thing, what would that be? So I come up with 2 messages. If I got to say the first thing and they listen to me, what's the second thing that I need to say to them? What is the pain point I need to discuss with them? How do I need to speak to this persona? What emotion does my message need to drive? And then what should I not say to this person? Now, if you were to do this, if you want to, we can send this over if you want to take a screenshot, but you go through context, you go through barrier of entry, you go through positioning, you go through expectation outcome, you go to message, and you answer these questions either through interviews or through the knowledge in the room. What you're going to find is you're going to create incredibly effective marketing campaigns. It's going to change the way you message. It's going to change the way you talk. It's going to change your website. It's going to change your marketing strategies, because you're going to be so focused on serving your client. And so I'm going to stop there, because I know that there is quite a bit of that we've gone over. But I think this is the key message that you want to get across. If you can take the time to build 2, 3, 4 key personas and build your messaging and marketing around them, you're going to succeed with your brand. Anyways, I'll hand it back to Johan.
Yeah, that's kind of I think something that we often say is we need to get really well versed with the main. We need to get really well versed with the folks who we're targeting to, and sometimes we even recommend taking printouts of these and just sticking it on your desk, and so you're constantly referring back to it. That's kind of the idea, but personalization has to start from this angle. That's what I realized. Bruce, in there, keen on hearing some of your thoughts.
I agree that personalization has to be part of even the approach, because otherwise, part of the marketing messaging is what are you catering to the customer that needs to be specifically personalized. Because if you end up just doing some sort of cookie cutter messaging approach, and the only type of personalization is you add is their name, there's really not that much at all personalizing besides the intro of hi. You don't know what they want. You didn't ask them any questions. So you can't address any of their pain points because they haven't told you what those pain points are, right?
You're
But
absolutely right.
if there was a way how maybe there was a form or they told you what those pain points were so you could address it back to them in a personalized way, they would feel like, oh, wow, this guy actually listened to me. He took a few of the key points of what I said. Maybe I said certain points even once. And did he act on it, or did he relay those back to me? I think that kind of the same kind of applies similar to a courting situation, right? When a man's courting a woman, sometimes a woman wants to hear, is she listening to the guy? And the guy scores points if maybe a woman says something once and the guy listened to a few of those points, and then maybe 2 or 3 hours or maybe the following week he discusses those points and he's like, well, I remember you said this and this and this. You just said it once, but I remembered it, and he relays that back. She's like, wow, I feel important because he took the time to listen to those few points and he remembered them, and now we're talking about it, discussing it. So the same courting process you could also relay that to business as well. Funny, I talk about that with my mentor Gary Beck, that it's a matter of business is like a relationship game with people, really. And sometimes you have to go through that same vetting or recording process. Are you listening to them, taking advantage of, hey, the points, the pain points that they're giving you, stuff like that. So if you're not listening to those pain points, how do you create this exact personalized experience for these customers that you want to try to close, let's say, even though they may be halfway across the world, if you know nothing about them? You're just talking, but how are you closing?
Yeah.
I mean, the best example of that is just, I don't know about y'all, but opening my inbox. So many of the marketers, writing to me now obviously use my name. It matters so little that they use my name now. It doesn't. I'm not incentivized to open it. I just know that they have a good tag there with my name on, and at some point I filled a form where my name was on it. But if they were, the thing is, I think what people miss when it comes to marketing, especially personalization, is we're tapping into an emotional area that they are looking for a breakthrough in, and that's what we're really going after, right? And so instead of saying, for example, I'll often get an email saying, Johan, do you have some time this week? Now the thing is, firstly, when I opened that email and realized it's automated, so much trust is broken because I've never heard this person's name in my life, and you used a very, very personal subject line. But had you in the subject line, just if you had kind of gotten to know me, and there's such good technology now to know what I'm interested in. You could see the blogs I'm reading, what are the CTAs I'm clicking, what are the lead magnets I'm opening. HubSpot and Pardot will let you do really advanced automation and personalization. And if you came to me and spoke to me about the thing that is clearly the most important thing to me, I will come in and I will come and access that. And I think that's what we miss. And so, given the context of even Nexweave and kind of what you all do, I think the Nexweave product is so powerful, but you have to make it work for you.
Yeah.
We're going a little bit deeper. Does that make sense?
I just to bring this in a little bit more practically, how we do personalization is we try our best, because in order to personalize message, they need to be a lead, they need to be an account on your CRM system at some point. There needs to be a field with a name and an email address, or maybe at least an email address. But the most intuitive ways to do your personalizing, even using a personalizing platform, is to try and bifurcate them at entry. If when they enter your system, and that's a whole different conversation about intuitive form building. But if you're able to segregate them based on this. That's why segments are so important, because if you know your segments, your personas, you have even a broad idea, and you create a system, whatever your form tool is, to segregate them at entry, you've already won half the battle. Because even having a baseline of what their problem is will tell you enough for you to have a meaningful conversation. And then, of course, if you run drip campaigns, chatbots, and push notifications, you're on an app, you can keep updating a person's profile. But that would be a great way to start.
True. True.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have this session with the community is because the very fact that personalization is only a multiplier on the efforts that you're trying to bring in is very important for everyone to understand that you start off with segmentation by understanding who your audiences are, dividing them into various segments, and then figuring out what is the value proposition, what is the pain point, what is the recurring pain point that they have. And you try to bring in a multiplier on that piece of communication by then using hyper personalized media in that part of the journey. And I
Yeah.
think I enjoyed watching the workshop. I'd love to know if there are some people who would like to step forth, have conversations with Shobit and Johan, and maybe ask some questions because I'm sure it'll add value in terms of the stuff that you're doing, or maybe you can share how you're operating right now and get some inputs from them.
Absolutely.
So Johan and Shobith, if two things. Who's the typical person that you would take a meeting from, right? And then number two, is there a way that people can schedule a meeting with you guys if they want to do like a personalized call?
Absolutely. I mean, so a big part of what we do, we keep apart a good percent of our time, maybe, just in office hours. And we do this because it gives us so much rich data of what's happening in the space, and also we're able to add value to that. And so I'd say we love exploratory conversations, so we don't put too many barriers there. And so if and so we can always pop on a call. I can probably send a Calendly link through Indra, Bruce, and throw that across. But yeah, we would love to we'd love to kind of open up some time if you would like to just chat, share us your use case. We'll keep a few slots open through December. And yeah, that would be great. We typically speak to a lot of founders, but also a lot of CMOs and marketing professionals, decision makers. It just allows them to move quicker. And if we have some reading material, it's always helpful, as you know.
Cool. Perfect. I guess we'll wait on that Calendly link then, and then we'll put it up later inside all of our Facebook groups in the meantime. How can people, let's relay this back to Nexweave, right? So
Yeah.
yes, we should take Nexweave and harness its power a little bit better. Johan or Shobit, after explaining to us the need that as we approach customers, we have to be or have to take a more interested approach, a more focused, I guess it would be attack to the person's or the client's needs or wants.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys, or do you have a recommended way of how you suggest that we use Nexweave differently to help execute that? Maybe to help with our closing techniques or to help close customers?
Yeah. So I like the use case for the email particularly. You see, because nurture is such an important part of your purchase journey, especially if you're going down the automation route. Like I said, brands are speaking to the bottom of the funnel. So most of your messages end up being sales messages. And it kindly shows from the kind of message you said. Now, what email nurture does is it takes people at the top of the funnel. So you're taking people who are not ready to make the purchase,
Right.
and then you're bringing them down towards purchase. Now, sometimes this cycle could take a while. It could take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months. I know I was reading this case study on a mattress company that sells purely by email, and their sales cycle is a year long but because they've got the funnel so well set up, their sales are off the charts. Now, what I see Nexweave doing to the email game is speeding up the nurture. You see, because when you are on an email campaign, you're having to test out different kinds of content formats. You're throwing a blog at them, you're throwing like a free resource at them, you're throwing a template, a checklist, you're an infographic. I mean, if you've been in the email game long enough, you're trying a lot of gimmicks. But we know that video is the highest consumed content on the web. And if you can nurture in the video, so rather than doing individual videos that speak personalization only for that video, if you can nurture, so you start a conversation, you pick it up midway and you close it, you use threads of videos, what's going to happen is, and if they're able to engage with multiple videos, you're going to speed up nurture. So what would take you 6 weeks of plain text emails could take you 2 weeks of highly intelligent personalized videos. I believe that to be a great marketing tactic personally.
So let me try to execute that within the Nexweave workflow. So let's say the objective is then to nurture a CRM of targeted people, right? My CRM has this list, right? So if you're saying attaching videos to emails would be an ideal way. So let's say we had a video inserted inside Nexweave with the person's name on the video. Let's say it was a 2 or 3 minute video. And then you did another one or another 2 additional on top of that, which were 2-minute videos with their name overlaid on the video. Maybe it had a little bit of an animation inside the email.
Yeah.
So let's say those 3 emails over 2 weeks would be an excellent way to nurture, to maybe prime some customers to be more open to whatever you have to consult with them on. How would you close them after you've nurtured them? In other words, how would you try to, or maybe you wait till the 3rd email to push for the invite for a meeting? Is that pretty much the general sequence of how you would use Nexweave with your client nurturing or your prospect?
I would, but what I would do is I wouldn't make them 3 individual videos that are individual, because you have personalizing and text communication is about building a connection. I would use the first video to build a connection. I'd set up anticipation for an incoming video. I would pick up the conversation in the second video, and then I would build rapport in the second video, and then I would look at pushing them towards the 3rd video. So rather than it being 3, it's not just about. So let me ask the question. You guys are using tags, right? You have I was like you're like hi, and then you have a merge tag, the name of the person. So let's take over. Let's say you added a custom field for their pain point. And let's say you're able to somehow gauge stage where the person is just by the kind of content they've come in from. What stage are they at? Let's say you take these 2 custom fields. You're able to create such intuitive nurture sequences. So it's not just about putting someone's name there. When I say hi Bruce, you're not it's not when I use Bruce Seaton, you're not amazed at the fact that I've called out your name. You're also looking forward to conversation. I would try to make that a conversation. I would try to tie it together. In what I would then do is I would set expectation, because now they're engaging with me. So they open one video, I'm introducing myself. They're like, hey, this is new. It's saying my name. I would then say, hey, by the way, go nowhere. In the next, I'm going to send you another, come back to you with another video in 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. I set that expectation. I would do the second nurture and set that expectation, would do the third. So one thing I would do is I would tie all 3 videos together. Now, if a person has watched all 3 videos, you also want to build a personality. It's not just about hi, John, When someone says, "Hi, John, we know that you're checking out a website for so and so product, and we wanted to just come back to you with some great insight on it," what the other person is asking subconsciously is, "Who am I building rapport with?" I can't possibly be building rapport with a video. So you do need to, in some ways, personify even your video, because you have to make it a two-way conversation. And that's why chatbots have personification. They're not just saying chatbot AI 324XB. They're saying, "Hey, I'm some mascot." Why do they give these chatbots mascot names? Because they know that you're starting a conversation. So my recommendation is one. It's not about 3 emails, guys. It is the number of nurture depends on the kind of product you're selling and the nurture cycle that you have. Some things takes much time, but I would use it for personalization. And personalization is not just about name. If you could use custom fields intuitively to gauge the problem and the stage, and you tie that into your nurture sequence, you're going to find a lot more results with that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Andrew.
that's one very important point that you mentioned over there, that the more custom tags or the custom fields that you use with respect to the kind of ecosystem or platform that you're imbibed in, it makes
Yep.
a ton of difference. So uh, I'll probably jump back to some of the earlier examples that we started Nexweave with. And uh, what we did is that we started harping on to what kind of data points are being collected at different stages of the journey, be it a B2B brand or a B2C brand. And we realized that if you are able to get some of the recent uh, data points that are being gathered, it could be anything. It could be your recent purchase, your recent view of a particular product. It could be a recent article that you read on the platform. It could be the recent score on a game that you played on the platform. The chances of someone picking up that conversation is a lot higher, because the freshness of that information catches their eye, that hey, this is something that I just did. And especially when they're thrown off their chairs by showing information in a more captivating format, where maybe I made a GIF for them, or maybe I made a short video for them, then they just feel that the brand has taken that kind of an effort to go ahead and do something specifically for them. And
Right.
maybe this would be true for maybe the next 2 years, 3 years, or just 1 year. But since this has an element of uniqueness or novelty attached to it right now, it can get
Right
you a
now.
strong outlier in terms of the kind of conversation that can take forward. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's, I think, a golden takeaway from whatever we've also seen people do. And since most of the guys who are using our platform are representing agencies, that could be one trigger point that you can start your conversations with when you're speaking to the respective brands on how can you make an impact in the customer journey, or how can you make an impact in terms of whatever key metric that you're trying to attack.
The two things that I was going to say that stood out was, Shobit, one, if you had 2-minute videos, which aren't really that long, having them interconnected and then forcing the viewer to say, if you don't remember or you want extra context about what we're talking about, watch the previous video. That makes a lot of sense, because it forces them to get engaged. Maybe it's a little hunt if they have to find those emails, or they're going to be more drawn in and create more affinity, because you're providing them with, like, back in the day when we were young, we used to have like choose your own adventure videos, right? So you would, you're providing someone chapter 2, but for full context, watch chapter 1. Or if you're providing them the third chapter, make sure you watch chapters 1 and 2 for full context. So that makes total sense, that maybe you don't talk about a complete subject in 1-2 minutes, but you split it up so that way they get the full scope of what you're talking about. That totally resonates. That's number one. Number two, and this kind of made me hit it like a ding moment. Ender, we have campaigns that we run on Nexweave. But if there was a way to attach maybe a small scoring element of this customer or this prospect has seen your videos 1, 2, and 3 within one campaign. Great. Well, that puts that customer or that prospect in a specific list that you have to go out of your way to set up a meeting with. because out of like the 1,500 customers, you maybe had 3 that within the first 24 hours saw all 3 videos.
Yeah.
You know those are going to be higher than, and they've seen 100% of those videos. Not just that they clicked on it quickly, but they actually understand the content and they've seen all 100%. Those prospects are going to rank higher than the rest. You know, it's probably going to be maybe a high ticket customer or a low hanging fruit customer from a prospect, right? Then it makes sense. And it's like, okay, maybe there's a slight scoring element that we're missing to help move Nexweave forward as also like a sales closing tool that a lot of sales professionals or marketers would like to take advantage of. On that note, we did have one message that came in. My brother from another mother, Donald. Donald, we'll catch up later. It's been so long, man. Let me put up his comment real quick. Yes, outreach is most effective when there's proximity and it is personal. You cannot close on proximity, so personal engagement is the best you can hope for. Never as strong, but as best as it can be. Right, but proximity now is almost kind of subjective because a lot of people are used to being approached or even being sold to virtually or distant-wise. But you're 100% right about personal, which is kind of what the direction that Inder was talking to me about 2 years ago. And I'm pretty sure he was talking to, I think, Johan, he was also talking to you too about it as well. There's a big disconnect when it comes to how do you approach a customer, because maybe some customers or some prospects appreciate gifts. Maybe some are subjective and they appreciate photos more than videos. The point being is that why would you want to use other platforms that move along that personal affinity building practice if they only have one type of media as opposed to one that would do video also, right? That might say your name in the middle of a presentation. Those things go a long way in terms of building up that affinity, building up that personal approach. And Andrew, we've talked about the different types of media that Nexweave offers, that will offer in the future. And, you know, that's one thing that drew me to this, because I still use that reference of, you know, that hologram that we're going to see 100 years from now. Someone's going to have a personalized video in a hologram format. Technically, if we found a hologram partner, we could probably do that now. But that's honestly what drew me to Nexweave. You know that. That's something that we just don't see in the space now. It's just a matter of, you know, talking and being educated by people like Shobith. How do we take advantage of the platform to help, like what Donald said, maximize on that the personalization as much as possible, because you're kind of making up sometimes for the lack of proximity, right? You can't sit down and have a beer with someone at a bar, so going that extra distance with that layer of personalization makes complete sense in this virtual world.
Yeah.
Also, I think one thing that Shobit mentioned on how you can use one video to progress the transaction, the conversation to the next media type or something like that. It's also something very relevant and something we've been working on, where let's say if we can have webhooks being triggered, which go and enrich the CRM with information that this gentleman has seen 70% of the video, or he's interacted with this particular component inside the video at this particular moment, that could probably hyper segment the whole audience as well, that these are the things that they are taking action on. This is what needs to come in next after this particular action has been taken. So those are things that we are also working on. But
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that with outside of segmentation, with the different factors that I talked about, the main segmentation, honestly, that every brand is looking for is proximity to purchase. How close is this person to buying from me? I mean, just being honest. And everything that you're trying to do in a nurture, and that's why it's so important to think of nurtures not linearly, because there might be somebody entering the top of your nurture that might be quite far down that purchase journey and ready to buy from you, but you're forcing 20 videos on them before they, the relevant CTA comes. So I think what you're talking about in sort of webhooks, and it's basically just ways to lead score. It goes back to Bruce's point. If we can create a lead scoring mechanism, HubSpot realized that way ahead of its time, that we need to have landing page. The reason they come up with landing pages on the platform is not because they created landing pages. They knew that they needed to bring web into their tech environment in a way that was controlled. Chat came much later, but they realized that for B2B sales, anybody who goes to the pricing section needs to throw up an instant red flag on that CRM. And so, and you need an email then to go to a salesperson with a ping on the phone saying, call this person now. They're ready to buy from you. And I think that's such a key factor. If you can create lead scoring, and then intuitively, I know each of the brands that use Nextweave need to know how to plug in this into their sales pipeline. It would be a great it would be a great advancement in CRM technology in itself. I mean, it exists, but I think it would be definitely a step up in that. And just one last point about that I'm making is, when you personalize something, it's important to know that the person is going to try to build. It's also building a connection. You can't forget the connection and just have the personalization. The moment you talk to me as a person, subconsciously I'm trying to understand who is it that I'm building a connection with. And that's a very important thing to remember, even with the whole lead scoring thing, where it's like, in your next week conversation, build a personality, introduce yourself. That's why mascots work. Or, hey, we noticed this about you. The listener picks up voice and tone, they pick up personality of the brand, subtle things. So that would be a very important thing that I would keep in mind while using the platform.
That also might be something to have a separate tier under, that we might have like this might be the business tier or the business team tier, because it includes lead scoring that we would attach to the light CRM.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, there are platforms which have mastered that particular equation. For example, HubSpot by itself has taken a long lead in terms of how that can happen. Uh, our role in the whole equation should ideally be that how do we enable them to get in more inputs so that they can add that multiplier on top of that. So, like I said, our objective over here is not to displace any of the components of a communication stack. We are only here to act as a multiplier. And that's what Nextweave has to do better, so that anyone who's made any investment in any CRM, any marketing automation platform, any chatbot gets that kind of multiplier with the kind of inputs or the kind of personalization that we're trying to bring in. And another thing that Shobit mentioned is that apart from the entire science behind the conversation, emotions matter as much. And that's where I think media steps in and gets that smile on your face because you saw a funny GIF, or gets that wow when you see something relevant in a video because someone feels that someone's taken a lot of effort to make that piece of media for you or something like that. So that's very important, that while you're being 100% scientific about what is it that my customer has as a technology stack, or where is he along the buying journey, etc., also induce a bit of humor or a bit of emotion that might just trigger that conversation a lot faster. I mean, we don't want to speak to boring people, so why not keep it a little lighter there?
True, and create a little bit of affinity with laughing too, with laughter.
Absolutely.
We'll wrap up with Donald's comment here. Simulated engagement in the virtual space is probably even closer to the best, most authentic thing. I'll talk about that in a sec. I think there's an opportunity there for like a video. I was going to say not even VR, but I was going to say AR on a website. But until it's properly developed and inviting, your efforts to personalize are the best you can hope for. Closer to showbiz communication. Yeah. So, and I was kind of thinking about this, but imagine having the person's name, and then there's like an AR. There's an AR model of I don't want to call it an AI bot, but with like, a transparent background, and they're talking to the individual who's browsing on the website, and it can either be a sales or support bot, and yet they don't know that the responses are coming from like a human, but we have all that personalized information because maybe they logged in with their Facebook account, right? Which I think is probably the also low-hanging fruit to find out what their interests are, what their name is, et cetera, et cetera. So having like that would bring in a good option as to breaking down those barriers of like cold outreach, right? Those we know those aren't effective when we have no data from the customer, but we can make it a little bit more of a personalized experience if there's some sort of avatar that talks with the visitor or the prospect. We have their name, we have an idea of the things that they like, right? Then it just makes more sense that it's like, okay, there's an avatar there, but maybe I just got out of bed and I don't want to show up on camera. My avatar does. Maybe the voice could come out of my avatar, or maybe the responses could, but the avatar is maybe lip syncing some responses to the person. So then it becomes almost like an AR affinity building experience on a website as a typical customer is browsing through the web, maybe with some slight head tracking. There's an opportunity there where you can take like a VR animated character, put it on an AR space, let's say on a website, and all you're doing is just having a one-to-one conversation, even though maybe you don't want that representative to show up on camera. It's an AR avatar that's having that type of relationship being built back and forth, because maybe the customer's typing something or the prospect is typing something on the website, or they're actually speaking back and forth with the avatar on the website. Anyways, that kind of was a way to like draw everything in together that we were talking about, plus Donald, plus is a way to how do we break down the barrier and get that name, get the interest. And I think doing an SSO through Facebook probably makes the most amount of sense, Shobit. Unless you have Google, which will bring in maybe your YouTube links or your YouTube viewing habits, or Twitter, same thing, right? The name as well as the type of people that they follow on Twitter, the same thing. Those I feel like are going to be the most valuable tools to help understand who are you speaking to directly, because it would be great if that customer service rep or that sales rep that's using that avatar could sit there and say, oh, okay, I see John logged in from Facebook and these are the things that he likes. That would help in real time, help out so much to not just build that affinity, give them that wow, but then once the conversation was done, that avatar was then in a GIF sending them a recap of their conversation via email back to that person, because they logged in with their Facebook account. So Facebook gave us their email address. We finished up with a customer service chat, and it just says, hi, John, and on the animated GIF video. Guess what? To the developers who might be watching, with API and with the upcoming launch of the new 2.0 Indra, I'm going to put this out there, with widgets and developers that will be able to integrate some of their tools or some of their workflows, you'll be able to create some sort of experiences like that, like the personalized GIF experience. Or maybe you want to copy over the avatar that was on your website, and you want to bring that in as a way to help close that prospect that was asking questions on the website. Guess what? You'll be able to connect Nexweave with, like, let's say your chat solution. Then your customer service tool becomes a prospecting tool, which then becomes a lead nurturing tool, yada, yada. So there you go. Shobit, I was trying to wrap all that up together, plus including what Don was saying about the virtual space, because I do see that. I see AR exploding much more than virtual, by the way, just because you don't need headsets, you don't need devices, you can apply it to a web, which is where majority of the population is going to be located at in the first place. Plus, it takes a while for them to realize, if I'm going to do VR, I need some sort of headset, whether it be a Google Cardboard headset, whether it be Oculus hardware. I think AR is where it's at, because all you need is a phone or a display, like a computer monitor. You don't really need anything more than that. So I think AR is the low-hanging fruit for the future, Donald, to answer your question or to respond to your comment. So, Donald, thank you for chiming in. And hey there, John Doe, what's up?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, guys, sorry for taking over there, but I just had that. I was like, that's just a novel idea of taking AR and how do you get it to lead nurturing and then give them a full, complete, personalized experience. It's like, well, there's a way to do it. Now it's just a matter of somebody building it out, A, and then B, How are you going to make it personalized along the way? All right. Well, I just gave you a complete breakdown of a new fictitious product of how you could lead score someone just through Facebook and including Nexweave for their personalized experience. So, Johan, let's build it out.
Bruce just weaved a very complex web over there.
I was going to say, your Nexweave engineers are going to have their hands full for a bit. Building
And
this
name
out.
another tool that's going to be able to provide you with all that besides Clearbit, right? But Clearbit you can't really associate to real-time feedback, whether it be sales or prospecting to an individual on a website. But imagine taking some of that data that Clearbit would provide you, right? That you could technically get if you asked for that permission when they decided to have a chat via their Facebook or their Twitter login or their Google login or their LinkedIn login, and connect that to an avatar so someone doesn't have to show their face, then technically we have like AR lead prospecting.
It's possible. I think.
Thanks, Polar Knights from Twitch, tuning in. Yes. Hold on. Let's rearrange it. There we are. There we go. There we go. There we are. So you have baby face, a little bit of stubble, and then you have clean cut right down there, and then Ender full on beard.
Well, my favorite thing is you go through an hour of in-depth marketing content, and that's what you pick up.
That's the takeaway.
Like, you know what's saying? Sometimes you have that joke, you have that brevity, right? That break that makes then the experience of the content that you were talking about that much more memorable. So thank you, Polar Knights, for making this 1 hour episode that much more memorable. Appreciate it. I'm going to leave it up just like that since we have the perfect sequence. There you go. There you go.
Right.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah, Shobit, I think everyone loved the session. I'm glad we could arrange this one for the community. We might not have everyone attending it, especially because this is the time of the day where we try to cover most of the globe, but we end up missing out on some. But we'll have a replay of this session. Let's see how others can also come back, and do let us know how they can reach out to you as well, so that maybe we can have you guys come over once again, and maybe we can discuss some very specific topics that came up today and then take it forward.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks for having us. And obviously, we'd love to open up some time for office hours. So if folks want to just come up and jam up some ideas with us, we are more than open. So I'll send you some links there. But thanks for having us. And Bruce, thanks for.
We should do this more often, because if some of our community, Shobit, could take your strategies and then they implement that, it would be great if we brought you on as well as some of the community members and say, I took Shobit's information and this is what I did in terms of my Nexweave campaigns. I think that just makes complete sense. And to respond to Donald, and it's not just PS3, but I think it was a little bit more accessible if you had Samsung devices, which allowed you to do that, where you could like play movies with friends. I don't think I've seen Apple do that, but I've seen Androids do that specifically. Samsung was heavy on that. Oh, Google Pixel devices also. I think Androids in general, they had the VR Dream platform or Daydream platform, and then Samsung had the Oculus Go platform that made it really accessible, that you could watch Netflix with friends and you could see the avatars of your friends on the left and the right. And that was the closest thing to mainstream I've seen with the VR and AR in terms of like playing movies with your friends. The VR is just too expensive for your typical headset for a desktop. But if Apple jumped on the bandwagon and Apple incorporated it instead of creating an API development kit and forcing third-party developers to use it, I mean, I say forced because Apple's not embracing it in coming up with an AR solution for the masses to demonstrate to the typical consumer and to the typical developer, hey, this is how you could use an iPhone to do it. Until they don't, it's going to lack adoption. They've built the kit so that way you could use it to build AR programs on an iPhone, but without some major implementation that comes out from Apple, it's going to keep having that uphill struggle. It's going to keep having that uphill battle. Now, granted, Android does take up 55 to 60%, I think, worldwide, maybe even 70% worldwide, especially in some areas. Yes, but not in the States. And Japan is more, I forget what the metrics were lately, but I remember they were more heavier on Android back in the day, which made sense. But I don't see VR taking off mainstream unless it takes off specifically in the States also, because they're seen as like the cool country. But Apple needs to step up the AR game. I agree with you in terms of shopping. Inder and I had talked about that, where you would be able to have, which we've demoed before in the past, where you could have a video, and then you could have points on the video that could be shoppable items, right? That was low-hanging fruit. That's awesome. So I think that makes sense that you include that as part of, like what Shobit was saying, a video approach, and then maybe selling something inside those videos with hot items that could be interactive. So yeah, Donald, thank you for the comments in there. All right, guys, we've gone over the 1 hour mark, so we'll cut it off right here. Thank you for joining us today. To those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. Hope you'll stick with us next Thursday, also same time, 9 a.m. Pacific. We went a little long, so I think we're going to have to push back our announcement to a little bit later, so apologies for that. Indra, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I think we're anyways about the clock.
Yep.
We'll have some announcements coming in the group itself on the lines of a couple of things that we've been trying to get out in the last month itself. So you guys can just be a little more active in the community, and we'll have some announcements coming your way.
Perfect. There you go.
Right.
And that being said, guys, keep social distancing in mind. Wash your hands, and we'll see you guys all next week.
All right.
Thanks for having
So
us.
for having us.
Take care,
Thanks
Johan.
so
Take
much.
care, Shobit.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.